On September 29, 2025, the world watched with bated breath as a pivotal moment in Middle Eastern history unfolded before their eyes. In a globally televised event, Donald Trump, flanked by Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, stepped onto the stage to unveil a dramatic ultimatum aimed at ending the long and bloody war in Gaza. This was not a negotiation in the traditional sense. It was a final, uncompromising offer. Hamas was given a stark choice: accept a set of strict, non-negotiable terms, or face the prospect of a renewed US-backed Israeli military offensive that threatened to escalate the conflict even further. Trump's plan projected an image of unwavering strength and resolve, positioning himself as the only leader bold enough to break the decades-long Israeli-Palestinian deadlock and bring about a new era of peace on his terms. Netanyahu, in turn, declared that the plan fully met Israel's war aims, reassuring his supporters that Israel's security would not be compromised and that the nation's interests remained protected. The proposal demanded nothing less than Hamas's total capitulation, an end to all armed resistance and the surrender of its leadership, in exchange for the promise of lifting the siege and bringing desperately needed humanitarian relief to Gaza's suffering population. Years of failed incremental diplomacy were swept aside in favor of a bold, all-or-nothing approach. In a move that surprised many, Trump announced he would personally chair an international board of peace, tying his own legacy and reputation to the ultimate success or failure of the deal, and inviting global leaders to join him in overseeing its implementation. After 2 years of devastating war, countless lives lost, and repeated failed ceasefires at the United Nations, this plan was presented as the last, best hope for peace. Yet, its uncompromising take-it-or-leave-it nature carried the very real threat of even greater catastrophe if rejected. The world now faced a stark and urgent choice: accept this imposed peace, with all its risks and uncertainties, or risk plunging the region into a final, tragic escalation that could reverberate far beyond Gaza's borders. The Trump plan is built on 6 foundational pillars, each crafted to fundamentally reshape the future of Gaza and the broader Israeli-Palestinian conflict. These pillars are presented as a roadmap, but each comes with its own set of challenges and implications for both sides. The first pillar calls for an immediate ceasefire. If Hamas agrees, the violence that has gripped Gaza would come to a halt, at least temporarily. This step is meant to create a window for negotiations and humanitarian relief, but skepticism remains about how long such a truce could last. The second pillar demands a rapid and comprehensive hostage exchange. Hamas would be required to release all Israeli captives within just 72 hours, while Israel, in turn, would free thousands of Palestinian prisoners. This exchange is intended to build trust, but the scale and speed make it a daunting challenge for both parties. The third and fourth pillars are perhaps the most transformative. Hamas must not only fully disarm, surrendering all weapons, but also dissolve itself as a political and military entity. An independent international body would oversee the destruction of its infrastructure, aiming to prevent any resurgence of militant activity in Gaza. The fifth pillar introduces an international stabilization force, led by Arab states, to secure Gaza and maintain order. Alongside them, a Palestinian committee, supervised by Trump's Board of Peace, would manage civilian affairs until the Palestinian Authority is reformed and ready to govern. This aims to ensure stability, but also raises questions about sovereignty and local representation. The sixth pillar requires Israel to gradually withdraw its troops from Gaza, but not entirely. Israel would retain a security buffer inside the territory, formalizing a continued military presence and raising concerns about the true extent of Palestinian autonomy under the plan. Finally, the plan offers only a vague and conditional promise of Palestinian statehood, with no clear timeline attached. Any progress towards statehood is tied to the successful reconstruction of Gaza and sweeping reforms, leaving the future of Palestinian self-determination uncertain. By stripping Hamas of leverage early in the process, the deal forces them to make difficult choices with little trust on either side. The risk is high, and the path forward is fraught with political and social obstacles. For ordinary Palestinians, the journey towards self-determination remains as uncertain and distant as ever. with hopes for peace and stability still hanging in the balance. For Hamas, Trump's proposal is a demand for unconditional surrender, not a peace deal. Disarmament and relinquishing power are red lines. Hamas leaders insist their armed wing is a legitimate resistance, not to be discarded. Excluded from negotiations, Hamas views the plan as a trap, serving only Israeli interests. The International Stabilization Force is seen as a new occupation, not a neutral peacekeeper. The hostage exchange, front-loaded in Israel's favor, would strip Hamas of its only bargaining chip. Accepting the deal means political suicide. Rejecting it risks annihilation. After years of war and devastation, Hamas faces a historic crossroads: end its movement or prolong Gaza's suffering. The choice is existential, for both the group and the people it claims to defend. Netanyahu's embrace of the Trump plan is a strategic masterstroke. By supporting the deal, he shifts blame for any failure onto Hamas, presenting himself as a champion of peace. Yet, at home, he reassures far-right allies that Israel will maintain a military presence and resist Palestinian statehood. If Hamas accepts, Netanyahu's coalition could collapse. If they reject, he gains a mandate to continue the war with U.S. backing. His political survival may depend on the deal's failure, giving him a hidden incentive for Hamas to say no. Either way, Netanyahu wins. He can claim he tried for peace, or justify further military action. The plan is less about resolution and more about political positioning. For Israel's leader, it's a win-win, regardless of the outcome. The world's response to Trump's plan is cautious optimism mixed with resignation. Key Arab and Muslim nations, along with European leaders, support the proposal, not as a perfect solution, but as the only viable path to end the crisis. Their backing is crucial, as Arab states would lead the stabilization force in Gaza. Yet Trump's ultimatum, accept or face annihilation, turns the plan into a high-stakes gamble. The international community hopes for peace, but braces for disaster if Hamas rejects the terms. Mediators like Qatar and Egypt face immense pressure to persuade Hamas, while the world holds its breath. The alternative to this flawed peace may be no peace at all. Beneath the politics lies a humanitarian catastrophe. 2 years of war have left Gaza in ruins, over 66,000 dead, infrastructure destroyed, and famine declared in Gaza City. Access to food, water, and medicine is scarce, creating a public health crisis. A UN inquiry has accused Israel of genocide, a charge Israel denies, deepening global divisions. The psychological trauma, especially for children, is incalculable. For Gazans, survival outweighs political debates. The urgent need is simply to end the violence. The Trump plan is judged not on its merits, but on whether it can stop the daily suffering. The stakes are life and death, nothing less. For Gaza's 2 million residents, Trump's plan brings a mix of hope and deep skepticism. Many crave any ceasefire, even a flawed one, after years of relentless war. Yet distrust runs deep. Trump and Netanyahu are seen as biased, and promises of statehood ring hollow. The idea of foreign troops sparks fear of a new occupation, while disarming Hamas raises concerns about future vulnerability. Most feel powerless, their fate decided by distant leaders. The choice is grim. Accept a deeply imperfect peace, or face more destruction. A Hamas rejection could give Israel the pretext for a final offensive, with U.S. support. For ordinary Palestinians, it's not about good or bad deals, it's about survival. Gaza stands at a crossroads, a pivotal moment in its long and tumultuous history. If Hamas accepts the proposed deal, violence could end, hostages might return, and much-needed aid could flow in. However, this path is fraught with uncertainty and potential internal strife, as factions within Gaza may not agree on the terms. The success of any peace agreement depends heavily on international resolve and effective Palestinian governance, both of which are far from guaranteed in the current climate. More likely, Hamas will reject the deal, triggering Trump's ultimatum and a devastating Israeli offensive that could lead to widespread destruction. the humanitarian crisis would worsen dramatically, and the dream of a two-state solution would fade even further into the background. Gaza could become a permanently occupied conflict zone, its people trapped in endless suffering and despair, with no clear path to peace. The Trump plan forces a binary choice: an imposed, fragile peace, or a catastrophic war that could engulf the entire region. It's less a blueprint for lasting peace than a final attempt to resolve the Hamas question by force, leaving little room for negotiation or compromise. The world watches, breath held, as Gaza's fate hangs precariously in the balance, with the potential for either peace or further devastation. The next move belongs to Hamas, and the consequences of their decision will echo through generations, shaping the future of the region.